This is the Gaming Buzz Podcast, where ranting about video games somehow equals content.
Hello and welcome to Gaming Buzz. I'm Jacob. He's Jason.
Oh.
And you're not Christian.
No, I'm not Christian. I look nothing like Christian.
Nope.
I'm probably the anti-Christian.
Whoa. Well, who are you?
I'm Dan. I actually, I'm the CEO and founder of Newsmakers Network, which Gaming Buzz appears on, and I guess I'm also your father.
I don't know which one to feel more sorry for.
Me, by far.
Wow.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
I can agree with that. Yep.
So, I unfortunately, we're going to have a great episode planned out with Christian today, but Christian was sick.
So we got somebody better.
Wow.
Oh.
So Christian was sick, and you happened to be in town today. And I'm like, hey, we should just have you on. And what's something you can talk about? Old things, because you're old.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. So we're talking about old things, specifically kind of retro gaming, because you've been in it for a long time. You've been into gaming since when?
I'm not answering that part.
What was your first game system / computer that played video
first
games?
Game system and computer are two totally different things. Okay, so if you want to talk first game system, it was probably the Atari 2600. Although I did have an Intellivision for a while, but really the first one that I really got into was the Atari 2600. First computer I ever had was a ColecoVision Atom, which the first game I had on that was Buck Rogers on cassette.
You know, the Coleco is generally considered one of the worst designed computers of all time.
But come on, the controller was crazy. It had all those buttons and
Numbers.
And it was insane. Like the game Mousetrap. Oh my goodness, forget about it. You're sitting there going, I am so confused on what button I'm supposed to press ever.
So we're going to talk about retro gaming and specifically it was better in the old days.
Okay, but I'm not gonna agree with you on that.
But it wasn't. But there are some things that have improved in modern days. We're going to compare retro gaming to modern gaming and see how they stack up and what things are better, what things are worse.
Okay.
So who's going to start? Not me, because I didn't plan this far ahead.
I've actually got a good point on this. Since you wanted to talk about things that were better, one thing I really liked about gaming in the quote old days, which I'm offended you made me say that. I love shareware.
Shareware?
For those of you who are too young to understand this, independent game developers used to make games themselves or through a small company and put it out for free with like the first level. And then if you liked it, you would register, which means buy the game.
However, I find the fact that most of the time when you registered a game, you'd actually have to ship them money. That's kind of an outdated concept.
You would have to mail them a check, and then they would mail you back a floppy disk with the extra levels.
What are those?
Right. Now, one of the best games for shareware, and to me the hallmark of how good the shareware system was Duke Nukem.
Duke Nukem?
3D.
Doom was really good for that, too.
But
the first entire chapter of Doom for free?
Right. And I paid for Doom, but really for me...
Did you pay for WinRAR?
I am responsible partly for WinRAR being a product in the U.S., so that's a whole other story. But ironically, even though I was the one who started importing WinRAR way back when, I've never bought a copy.
Aww.
No, and sorry, Eugene. Eugene's the guy who programs WinRAR. I apologize. I've never bought a copy of the software.
So do you think shareware was good back then?
Shareware was awesome. I mean, it allowed smaller developers to get product out, and we used to distribute the software via bulletin boards, which, again, for those of you too young, bulletin boards were the predecessor to the internet, where you would actually dial in with a modem to someone else's computer and download software from it to your computer. It would take you days for some of the games. You deal with that. But it was truly the first peer-to-peer distribution network that made it possible for software developers who would never get into a retail store be it Egghead, Software, et cetera, they would never have a chance of getting their product in there. It could be that they didn't have the money to make the boxed version. It was a way for anyone to produce what they were interested in and sell it.
So now let's look at the modern equivalent. And, for a long time, it was just simple demos and even like demo discs, PlayStation Underground, that kind of stuff.
Oh, I remember those. Those were great.
They fell off a long time ago.
And they were fun.
And demos really did not exist for a long time. A lot of games did not come with them.
No, they're called trials.
But now what we have, and overwhelmingly this has been the thing in the past couple of years, are open betas.
Right, but a lot of these open betas are now going to a paid model where you get early access.
Oh, early access too, yeah.
I want to jump back a second, though, because I think the single biggest change and the benefit to it is Steam. I have to say, for me, I would consider myself more of a casual gamer now than I was, when I was younger. But if it weren't for Steam, I would not probably be into games anymore, because I don't want to buy a physical product and have to go to the store to get it and then find out I hate the game. With Steam, not only do you have the ability to buy it instantly on impulse, but with their new return policies, if you play it for, an hour, I remember what the limit is. What is it, 2 hours?
Yeah,
you play
2 hours.
And you say, hey, this game totally is not for me. You can get your money back.
Okay, so distribution, would you say in general has improved then? Because you like Steam and downloads?
Distribution as it currently stands is incredible. I mean, honestly, when I go on to Steam and I could see 1,000 games and pick and choose what I want and, download it and have it within an hour to play, you can't beat that.
Jason, how can you beat that?
How can you beat that? Games that don't involve you having to have internet to play.
But you can still get those via Steam.
For the most part, though, once the internet's down, you're not playing more than half your library.
There are games that, have always online DRM, which are dumb.
Those are dumb, but it's not Steam's fault.
But even then, there's a lot of those. That's why digital download, once internet goes dark, you're normally SOL.
Okay, but
and you can't buy new
even
games.
those games could be in box versions, then it could still put that same type of DRM in them. I mean, let's go back to Secure ROM. You want to talk about the worst thing that ever happened to gaming? Let's look at Secure ROM. That was, a physical medium that pretty much overtook your computer, and to me, it was a virus.
Because it was.
It was, absolutely. I mean, after you install the game, the DRM element should have been gone. It wasn't, and it was impossible to get rid of unless you felt like going through about a day's worth of, work.
And that encouraged people to pirate.
Right. Well, you know what? Whenever I see a game on Steam that has DRM that's Secure ROM or a few others, I won't.
Like De Nouveau?
One of the Grand Theft Autos, I forget which one.
4.
4, yeah. I won't touch it. No matter how good of a game it is, I won't touch it.
And though going back, what I did like about the old games in general is their difficulty compared to a lot of the newer stuff. They were actually just that much harder.
Okay, so I'm going to tell a story, and I'm going to really date myself here. When I was younger, I used the Apple II as one of my primary computers, and there was a game called Sneakers. It was just kind of like a Space Invaders kind of clone, but more vertical scrolling. And, as I got older, I obviously moved on to other things, but I decided I wanted to collect Apple IIs, and that's a whole other story. And one day I set it up and, I put this game Sneakers that I found a copy on eBay. It was on a 5 1/4-inch floppy disk. And I put it in and I showed Jacob and some of my other kids. And I'm like, look at this. This is, what gaming used to be. And it was actually fun. It was fun. It really was. And I think some of the games now sacrifice fun for beauty.
And experience.
Right.
The experience of going and shooting this dude in this majestic location. Not as fun as you'd think.
Right. So,
one thing I definitely like about modern gaming versus retro gaming is I find that, with all the different platforms you have now and all the different ways you can enter the industry, with indie developers and whatnot, I find there's a lot more variety in games, a lot more genres than there used to be. And even when in genres that are set in stone, something that exists, nowadays you tend to have more competition in them for your time, which means, if there's something you really don't like about the one game in a genre, they say the leading game in that genre, you can go to another one.
It's been my view that there needs to be more independent development and more unique views of what gaming could be. And unfortunately, we're in a world where there's, studios spending millions on producing a game, and small independent developers can't do that. Honestly, in today's day and age, 3D Realms or id Software would never have survived. They would never have survived.
Well, they don't survive now. They're gone.
id Software's still around.
Software is, but the
they're
studios
gone.
aren't, yeah.
Yeah. 3D Realms is still around.
Sure. It's owned by Gearbox. Like,
No, that's incorrect. Gearbox owns the IP for Duke Nukem, but 3D Realms as a company is still around.
And what have they done since like 2010?
I didn't say they
Rage?
did anything.
I wouldn't wish that hell on my worst enemies. The only, classic PC like developer that's still around and still kicking and really doing well is Bethesda. And no one cared about them in the 90s.
I don't really remember them.
They did The Elder Scrolls.
Yeah,
and that's like it back then. All the others, your Interplays, your Microprose, where are they?
Well, that's part of the problem with business, though. They all got acquired and merged. Sierra was a big one. Borderbound was a big one. Obviously, Atari, Hasbro was huge for a while. All those companies are gone. If you want to have some fun, go on Wikipedia and just look at the defunct video game manufacturers or video game producers. It's like a minefield of dead companies, and I'm not sure if that's a good thing. How many products were bought by EA and
Activision
left, stagnant?
Vivendi.
Yeah.
Vivendi's bought a lot and just left it sit.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
They just tried buying Ubisoft. That's even more scary. They're buying another giant AAA developer.
That is scary.
Not even just a tiny studio. They're not EA buying off Maxis and killing them slowly.
Yeah. Well, I think Maxis probably would have died on their own. I mean, they were a company that got big and didn't have the resources. I think they had some really unique ideas. I was never into Spore. I would have been into The Sims, except for I hate Sim Talk with a passion. It makes me want to hurt something.
I actually really don't like it either. That's kind of funny.
Yeah, I don't like Sim Talk. And I think, actually, I remember that Simcopter is where the first Sim Talk came.
That is correct. And it's called Simlish is the official language.
Yeah, a Simcopter was hilarious, by the way.
Yes.
I'm just going to say, especially with the naked male.
The naked men Easter egg,
Yeah,
which is wonderful.
Yeah.
We are way off topic, though.
I expected that. When we talk video games, what do you expect?
Yes. For me, a lot of the newer stuff, it's in the storytelling. Like, storytelling's come a long way
they're
since
like
the olden
movies
days.
now, don't you think?
And they are, but I mean, it's more of an interactive movie rather than having a movie made into a game and the game's utter shit.
What I really enjoy are the games that we have now that achieve two things. One, it's something that we couldn't have had in the past. And two...
Can you give me an example of something we couldn't have in the past before you go with the other one?
I mean, basically any fully 3D games. Technologically, it's something we couldn't have had in the past.
Okay.
And the other one is an experience you couldn't get from another medium. Something that's so video gamey. The Sims is actually a really great example. That's not something you could experience as a movie or as a painting.
No, but what is The Sims?
The Sims is real life.
No, it's a dollhouse.
Yeah, it's Dollhouse. It's a portrayal of sitcom America.
Right. So you could sit there with a dollhouse and have that same experience, right?
Not quite the same, but close, yeah.
So it's really just virtualizing something that happened in real life.
Another great example, I don't know if you've ever heard of this, the game Flower.
I've never heard of Flower.
It's a game where your entire objective, it's a very artsy game. You play as petals in the wind, and you just move around beautiful landscapes following the wind.
And people like this.
Oh, yeah.
Very artsy, very relaxed.
That and Journey.
Journey. What's the other one? Abzu, which is just like, hey, explore the ocean.
So the flower thing sounds horrible. I'm sorry, but it does.
Journey drops you in the middle of a desert and says, go and explore.
The desert.
Basically.
Yeah, and it's like tied into music. It's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So that's not something I would ever be into.
Or what's the other one where you throw all the black balls to paint the environment?
Oh, I don't know.
I'll have to find it.
All right. So I want to ask.
Yeah.
'Cause we're talking difference between then and now, and you guys are missing the biggest difference.
Arcades.
You're missing the biggest difference.
Not having to blow your cartridges.
But now we have a different problem. We have to resurface them.
Okay. You're missing the biggest difference in gaming, and that is mobile. And obviously, you guys probably are not the typical mobile gamer, but I cannot count the tons of people I see on their phone playing Candy Crush or Toy Blast or My Vegas or whatever all day long. The amount of development that companies are spending on mobile is huge because with the ability to have it constantly in your hand and constantly with you, and the ability to take money from your Google Play or iOS account really easily, it's
That's
cash
what they really
cow.
care about.
Well, but other than the artsy things, isn't that what all game developers care
Take my money faster. Yep, that's
Right.
that's what it's all about.
I mean, if you're going to produce something, don't you want to be compensated for it?
Well, I'm not really compensated for this.
Well,
we don't make
course.
enough money.
Right. But wouldn't you like to?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Right.
Maybe we should install microtransactions.
Yeah. We should have like level ups and stuff.
Yep.
Have a penny every time Jacob speaks.
Huh.
Oh boy. Now, with that being said, do you want to know what my biggest complaint about modern gaming is?
What is it?
The $60 price point. The arbitrary, hey, we're going to just bump up the pricing of games by $10 because we can.
Compared to like the PlayStation 2, you're saying?
For years, it was like a $50 price point, and this goes back a long time. I'm going to date myself again. I remember buying Leisure Suit Larry on PC for $50 years ago, like in the early 90s.
I'd pay that now for that.
I was going to say, so would I. It's one of the only adults-only games out there
It was
is good.
so
that's rarely available.
It was so cheesy. It was great because of that. But that price point was, different because you had physical boxes, you had everything. But, buying a computer was also $2,000 back then, easily. So if you wanted to play it, you already had a huge investment.
Now, when you're talking consoles, though, the price is kind of more agreeable. Although it doesn't make sense, it does kind of make sense. It jumped from 50, which was the standard for like, the PS2, the GameCube, Xbox, the PS1, and the Dreamcast.
Right.
To 60 because development cost increased with the switch to HD.
I guess my problem with it, though, is that it was across the board. It was like, okay, this is now the price per games. No, games should have value based on how much they have to them.
Well,
So, and I'm gonna
lucky
Let him get in. Hold on. Let him get in.
lucky for you. Almost all the games nowadays are 60 across the board as well, so we don't have as much of a gap again.
But I think
Even
Actually,
Switch games are like 60.
I think certain games should be worth 60, maybe even 70,
So-
and certain games should be worth 20.
That's something I was going to bring up. The Switch is actually different. I see a lot of Switch games priced at different tiers of pricing. I've seen plenty of games, there are only like 30, 40 games on the system already, and only like 20 of them are physical. But there are several at the $50, even $40 price range versus 60. And it really seems like they're really customizing the pricing based off of, the game and, how much storage it needs on the little cartridges and stuff like
You
that.
see that a lot on the other systems too. I mean, when they re-released Duke Nukem 3D, it was $40, not 60.
Are you talking about the World Edition?
The new one that they
You mean
just
forever?
what
Or,
they just re-released
No, it was like
3D and
It was
HD.
20.
It was like $20.
Was it?
Yep.
So yeah,
And
but
that's
still.
another thing that kind of sucked too, because there was a company, and I forget who they were. They had the license for Duke Nukem for PC, and they were making a really good version with a whole bunch of extra bells and whistles.
And Gearbox sued the crap out of them.
No, Gearbox just didn't renew their contract, so they had to pull everything from Steam because they no longer had the license to do so. And then Gearbox comes out with the World Edition, and it's fine. But the other one had so much more to it now. I guess some people are like trying to bring those maps.
Talk about Megaton.
Yes, I couldn't think of it, but yeah, a lot of people are trying to bring those maps back in like Steam Workshop and all, but that kind of sucked. It'd be nice if they would have just kept them both, but I understand why they didn't, because Gearbox needs to make some money.
One thing that I actually brought it up as a joke earlier, interrupting you, but the death of the arcade is really something to talk about.
Arcades still exist in a weird way. They're normally attached to a Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah, or like
or they're modified PS2s.
Right. What's that app on Steam though? The Virtual Arcade? That actually is unique.
Mm-hmm.
But again, dating myself, which I'm going to say like 8 times in this episode, I'm sure.
You're old.
I used to go to an arcade in Chicago. It was called Chicago Game Room, and it was huge, and it was so cool. And they always had the newest upright games. The
cabinets.
Point out, yeah. Cabinet. So they would always have the coolest new one, and there'd always be the line. And then you had the system where you would put your quarter up there and say, I'm next. And I always thought it was the dumbest thing, because there'd be a roll of quarters, and like, how can you prove which one's mine? Because they wouldn't mark them or anything. They would just, that's my quarter. I'm next. And, I'm next after you. Yep. It was the dumbest thing.
Well, mine was a California state quarter, so.
I don't think they had state quarters then.
Oh.
I'm not sure when they started that.
Wow, you're old.
Yeah, I'm old. Anyway, but I liked arcades. I liked the experience of going, and it was social. It was like, oh, I'm going to go and see who's hanging out at the arcade. I'm going to play Tempest and,
lose all your money at Dragon's Lair.
I went to an arcade rather recently when I was in the Mall of America. They had like a arcade mixed with a restaurant thing, but we just went there for the arcade. And sure, it was a lot more of your modern gimmicky stuff, but they did have some more classic arcade systems, and I just had fun, wandering around, seeing the different cabinets and trying new experiences, and that's something you don't get much of nowadays.
One thing that I do like, and obviously I don't have one, but a lot of these cabinets that they're making with the multi-game.
Mm-hmm. Multi-game or MAME machines.
Those are kind of cool, though, because you can have that experience of the upright feel, with obviously not having to have a 30-year-old system that's hard to get parts for anymore.
Also, the machines that were novelties, the ones with, things that were different with like, hey, here's $1,000 machine you can buy that has a really custom way to play the game. You don't get those anymore.
Do you know what the coolest arcade game that I played was?
I know your answer, but share it for the group.
Okay. It was Pac-Man Baby, I want to say. It was one of the Pac-Man series, but it was half arcade game and half pinball machine. And it was the funnest thing. The problem was that the pinball part of it wasn't very well done. And I remember I was playing it, and it constantly, the ball would get stuck somewhere, and you were like done. But it was that was the kind of thing where someone had just came up with a crazy concept, and
that stuff doesn't happen anymore unless you're in Japan.
Well, that's funny, because like you see all the stuff they're doing in Japan, they're not afraid to take risk over there and just do something crazy.
But crazy is Japan's middle name. All right. Well, do you have anything else either one of you would like to share?
I do have something that's on my mind. I think consoles are dead.
I agree.
I do not.
Yeah, but that's your business. So you're heavily biased on that.
Well, not even just that. Like, okay, so let's take Xbox, PlayStation. Like 99% of the games you download, if you download them, you cannot play offline, period. Maybe on Steam you can, but on console you cannot.
Right.
And some of those games only come out on those consoles. They don't come out on Steam or PC or anything like that.
Correct.
So you're going to be locked into physical media until they find a way to not kill the internet, which they're slowly working on right now, thanks to the FCC.
But here's the thing, First of all, it was recently announced that for the first year ever, digital sales officially surpassed physical sales of games, and by quite a considerable amount. It's something like 60-40.
And that's only going to get bigger and bigger.
and it's going to keep happening, and it's going to get to the point where, you know, Microsoft has joked before about, releasing systems without disk drives. I imagine this current generation, which I don't consider the 8th generation, I think we're in the 9th generation with the PS4 Pro and the Scorpio and the Switch. I don't see them as half steps. They are the new consoles.
Okay,
I see them as being the
I
last.
can't go with you because there's nothing really majorly different. It's incremental change.
It is incremental change, but you know, we're so strict with defining as generations with consoles. You have to, and those generations are going to get shorter and shorter as the systems cling to life. And
so, excluding the Switch, which is kind of a unique hybrid, why does anyone need a console?
Okay,
When we have a PC that can do all the other stuff we do, plus fill it in games.
I can't really justify the PS4 or PS4 Pro besides saying exclusives are awesome.
Which is the only reason I would buy a PS4 is because I want MLB The Show, because no one else is making a baseball game, and no, RBI baseball does not count.
And for the Xbox One, who cares? But for the Scorpio that's coming out, or whatever it will be called, really, and this is something that a thought that's shared by many people, it's just a budget gaming machine that happens to have a lot of restrictions on it to supplement the cost. You know, you can only use their things, but you're talking with what we're getting for whatever $400, you're probably going to be getting like an $800-900 PC equivalent.
Right.
So that's where I see that being okay.
But then you're locked in with vendor lock-in to a console.
As a sidebar, as they're getting on a tangent again,
Yeah.
we will be discussing that more at length between digital and physical distribution sometime soon.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, that's a whole nother.
Oh, and the Xbox One, its justification for existing is the Xbox One S is the cheapest 4K Blu-ray player on the market. Boom, that's it. It's a good entertainment centerpiece.
You know, we talk about physical versus digital. No one's going to be buying Blu-ray,
Nope.
so it doesn't matter.
No,
Well,
it doesn't.
yeah.
But for the niche user who needs one,
I think we're going to be,
DVDs and Blu-rays are a different thing altogether. But that being said, one of us in this room thinks physical media is going to keep going. At least two of them do not.
yeah. And I'll let you guys fight that out more.
Mainly, the old one in the room thinks that it's dead.
It's dead.
It
But
is
I'll
not.
let you guys fight that in another episode. I'm just
I think
telling
we've
you.
got another 5 years maximum for physical media. And that's me as a collector who's hyperventilating at the thought of not being able to buy my games physically.
In short, I think we'll see at least another full generation of about 8 years before we get to that point.
Regardless of when it comes, it is coming. We can't get away from it. I mean, look at Nintendo. Nintendo's done everything they can to reduce their physical market share.
I'm not saying it's not coming. I just
You
don't think
guys
it's as soon as you
can
guys think
debate
it is.
that in the next episode because we could go another hour.
I
on
think
that.
you're hinting that it's time to go.
No, I think I'm just saying that
Yeah.
you guys should save that because there's a lot you could talk about.
one of us in the room has a bedtime, so
So I think that wraps up this very all over the place episode.
No, I think there should be one more question.
Okay.
So you're a retro collector.
Yeah.
You obviously have access to tons of old stuff.
mhm.
What's your favorite old game?
My favorite old game.
Yep. And when I say old, I mean,
Give us a year.
we're going to go the 90s or earlier. So anything in the 90s or the 80s.
Commander Keen and Duke Nukem were the two closest.
I love
Favorite
Duke
games.
Nukem 3D as my 90s title.
Yeah.
Duke Nukem, still to this day, is that good.
It's
Duke Nukem
aged
3D.
so well
Yep. So
compared to like all of its contemporaries.
right. I can't sit down and play the original Doom. It just kind of doesn't do anything for me anymore, but I can play Duke Nukem. The obvious, side effect is that I know where everything is and whatever, but it's still fun.
That's where Steam Workshop levels comes in.
right. So I think, I would have to say it's the best game of the 90s.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'd honestly agree with you.
That and
Some
XCOM.
people would say,
XCOM was
Legend of
fantastic.
Zelda: Ocarina of Time or Final Fantasy VII or Metal Gear Solid. None of them have really aged well.
No, I've never been a fan of Zelda, so you know that. But
And for the 80s, hands down, it's Smash TV.
'80s, I would have to go with Pac-Man.
Actually, that might have been in 1990. So,
Okay, but if you want to talk best game of the 80s, it had to be Pac-Man. It has to be.
or Super Mario Bros. 3. Sorry, it's amazing.
Was Dig Dug 2 early 90s or was it in the 80s?
Oh, I don't know.
That was 80s.
Yeah, Dig Dug 2.
Okay, but you got to go with Pac-Man. I'm sorry. You just have to. It's based on pizza, first of all.
Waka waka waka.
And second of all, you want to talk about what really pushed the arcade revolution. It was Pac-Man. More people got into
Got
gaming.
the Pac-Man fever.
Right. It had a cereal, a song, a cartoon. You got to say that was the most influential game of the 80s,
All right.
in my opinion.
That or Super Mario Bros.
Pac-Man.
Close contender. I'd probably give it to Pac-Man, but close contender.
Super Mario was 90s, wasn't it?
No,
Early 90s.
No.
No?
No.
your timing's way off,
Yeah,
man.
it is.
I know all the years blur together.
Yeah, when you
you're
get
that old.
older like me, you never know. I just remember having the NES.
All right, well,
So
thanks-
last week was probably our shortest episode. This is going to be our longest.
oh, yeah. Well, thanks for coming on. I know you've got stuff to do. Old man that you are, you're busy.
Oh yeah, actually, this has been my network day. I've been on 3 shows this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So, thanks for coming on to the show that you bankroll.
You're welcome.
And
thanks for inviting me to my show.
do you think these lovely people out here watching this should help pay for the show, so you're not paying for all of it by going to www.gamingbuzz.com/shop to get a nice Gaming Buzz t-shirt, mug, accessory?
I think they should do that just because they're really cool. I have several of my own. So yeah, gamingbuzz.com/shop. Get a t-shirt, get a mug, get a cell phone case.
I'm going to say, I don't even have a shirt, so you'd be ahead of me.
Wow. And,
gamingbuzz.com/shop. You can get one.
make them fit. So you can like this video, you can subscribe, hit that bell for notifications, make sure you don't miss that, so you don't miss our next episode. Jason and I have some fun topics planned for the future.
Tell us how
Look at that, we're actually prepared for once.
Tell us how much better I am than Jacob.
Oh, absolutely. And that's everything, right?
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. So goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Did you like that? Of course you did. You can get more at GamingBuzz.com. Let us know what else you want by connecting with us on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube.